Warm good morning. Namaskar, Suprabhatam. We welcome all the dignitaries on the dais and all the dignitaries off the dais for this 2-day national seminar on Kautilya Arthaśāstra sponsored by ICPR. And it's an inspirational thing for all the organizers and the participants that this is first of its kind program that's happening at our youngest department, which is CIILS, Chanakya Internarional Leadership Studies. The dignitaries on the dais are our Director Dr. Chanakya Madam, we have Professor Dr. Bhuvan Chandel, our own dear Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, and Head of Department, our own Dr. Arthaśāstra. Without taking much time, I request the dignitaries to kindly come and light the lamp from the Sanskrit. Welcome once again for this particular program. It is said that Vidwanon ki Sabha, the kind of a gathering we have today, is always the decision-making body for the next generation. Because when great scholars, great thinkers meet together, the churning that happens will be taking a lot of thought-provoking ideas for the next generation. But when you look at one great scholar called Kautilya, or more popular as Chanakya, whose influence in the society is not just as a Vidwan, but a practical Vidwan. I think after 2400 years also, we are sitting here in a Vidwanon ki Sabha and trying to look at the modern day relevance. This particular idea has been tried out for so many generations in so many ways, and we at the Mumbai University is also doing so many work in this particular field. And a part of such a great perennial river, as they say, knowledge which is continuously, after generations going on and on, is this 2-day national seminar on Kautilya's Arthasastra. I will not be taking much time, but I will be requesting Dr. Professor Shubha Joshi to give a complete background of this particular program. But a quick introduction about Professor Joshi. As all of us know, and many of our friends also over here, she's been in the teaching of philosophy for many decades, more than 35 years. She's been a philosopher. She's worked very closely and heading the philosophy department and various other capacities nationally and internationally. But the role that we have over here, she's also the director of the Chanakya International Institute of Leadership Studies at the Mumbai University, which is one of the youngest institutes just formed last year. The whole idea about this particular program has been conceived and directed by her. So to give the vision about this particular program and the institute as such, I would request Dr. Professor Shubha Joshi to not only welcome but give a complete background.
Good morning, everybody. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Chief Guest of today's function, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, President for this particular function, to give her presidential remarks, one of very senior and very respected figure in philosophy, who has practically contributed meaningfully to every institution which is working in the area of philosophy in India and in the world also, is Professor Bhuvan Chandel ji, Dr. Madhavi Narsade, Head Department of Sanskrit. In the premises of Sanskrit department, we are having this institute. It's really a great day in the short history of this institute of ours, that is Chanakya International Institute for Leadership Studies. I will be very brief to tell you about this institution, but it's important to tell you about this institution because this is of its type, at least in the present situation. We wish that many such institutions may come up in universities later on. It's an outcome of 5 years major research project at the Department of Philosophy from 2010 to 2015. That this institution is started, and the support of authorities of Bombay University, without which this institution would not have been started. Last year it started an first of its postgraduate course in leadership studies and leadership sciences. We started last year. It's a 2-year postgraduate degree in leadership, the first of its kind in India. It is introduced with the interdisciplinary approach, not only at the level of academics but also at the level of its admission. So the eligibility is graduation from any discipline plus the entrance test and the interview. The first batch started in the academic year 2016-17 and now is doing the second batch. Interdisciplinary approach tries to cover almost all aspects like leadership in politics, the Indian ethos of leadership, the challenges for leadership due to advancement in science and technology, just to mention a few. The whole syllabus is on the website of Mumbai University. If you are curious and interested, you may please refer to the syllabus. It's a self-supporting, self-financed institute of its type. And we have also thinking of and we have put suggestions to make this an institution autonomous one so that it can run its courses at different levels. It's our experience at philosophy department and also experience of Sanskrit department that short-term courses made available to people who are desirous to know something about are also extremely successful. So we want to run short-term courses, diploma, certificate, as well as workshops, so that if we are autonomous, we will be able to take decisions. So we have also suggested how that academic autonomy can be really put into practice. Thanks to Dr. Madhavi Narsare for providing us infrastructure, and not only infrastructure, but her association with us. That is, I belong from philosophy and she is from Sanskrit. Her contribution in the academics also is very, very significant in designing the course and the course curriculum, especially the pre-Chanakya and the post-Chanakya Indian legacy and Indian ethos. So, we last year had done project works, and we also had some study tools. We would like to enhance our activities provided much freedom is given by the university. Let us hope that in future we will be given this type of freedom. I would like to tell you something about the future plans which are in the pipelines. We have already had discussions, and what is in the pipeline is a proposal from the Indian Air Force, and Wing Commander Aditya Kiran is here. His association with this institution, he had already suggested we'll be sending the batch of senior officers for the leadership development program for say week or 2 weeks or a month as per. So there has to be a agreement between the authorities of Air Force and authorities of Mumbai University. This is for the first time that the youngest department of the university, and not really a philosophy department, but still a grant, and the assistance is given by Indian Council of Philosophical Research to have a seminar on Kautilya Arthaśāstra. So we really are honored by this particular offer by ICPR, and we are also grateful to ICPR for this generous gesture of theirs. It not only speaks about money, but it also speaks more about the academic contribution which is recognized by Indian Council of Philosophical Research, and we are happy about it. Also, there are challenges, but you know, if we have a bright future, then challenges can be overcome, and we have people who are extremely helpful, and those who are supporting us for the cause of it, that we are contributing to the field of knowledge. Let me also put it before the invited guests that the first batch of ours is really full of meritorious and quite bright students coming from different walks of life, playing very vital role of leaderships in different domains of life. Some of them are bankers, some of them are engineers, and some of them are working as marketing sales, some of them are lawyers, and some of them are in finances. Nobody is in the teaching profession. All are coming from the leadership role played in different walks of life, even medical doctors. So we are very happy that we are enriching ourselves, also getting it from the students. Now coming to today's seminar, since we have already adopted interdisciplinary approach in our admissions as well as in our syllabus, for this seminar also we were clear enough to have interdisciplinary approach to explore dimensions of Arthaśāstra or Kautilya. And our interaction as usual firstly was with Sanskrit department with Dr. Madhavi, and also philosophy department with my colleagues in philosophy department. And then we invited scholars. I'm very happy to tell you that in the 2-day seminar there will be scholars from armed forces, and I'm very happy to tell you that armed forces scholars are very meticulous in their studies, and not only they study Arthasastra, but they also take into account the entire horizon of Indian philosophy in the wider perspective, and they see Kautilya Arthasastra in the Indian perspective, which is really admirable, and they are doing it. We are in contact and we have been interacting with them, and they are here. Welcome you scholars from armed forces. There are also scholars from Sanskrit department looking at the legacy of Kautilya and the thought of Kautilya, pre and post Kautilya. So there are a number of papers which are here. And again, when I mentioned it to Colonel Pradeep Gautamji, he knew that Jaina scholar who has written on Arthasastra, Madhavi, this is for your interest, and we wanted the text, so if the text is available, then that can be provided to you. So that is how the interest is. There are people contributing on good governance from political science. There are also philosophy faculty contributing on epistemology and anvikshiki, and the concept of Rajarshi, which is considered as the transformation, leadership transformation, and the present scenario which requires transformation, the techniques of transformation. We all agree that there is a need for transformation, but is there a methodology for transformation, and is Kautilya and Arthasastra suggesting some methodology? This also will be discussed in this in this seminar. Then a very senior scholar who will be joining us a little late, coming from Adi Shankaracharya Sanskrit University from Kaladi, who has been teacher of Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai. He taught Radhakrishnan Pillai Kautilya Arthasastra word by word. He will be joining us, and we will contribute in a meaningful way on Kautilya Arthasastra. There will be also papers which will give a comparative picture of Kautilya Arthasastra and Sanskrit literature. Problems like disaster management, problems like corruption, whether can be handled critically and successfully, also will be discussed. What is very important is that 13 of our students will be presenting papers on Arthasastra and different dimensions of Arthasastra. All that will be in the student seminar. Due to paucity of time, we are able to give only 5 minutes to our student presenters. They are very enthusiastic and they have prepared it, but we said that we will have one full day independent seminar for students' presentation. We will invite eminent scholars and we will have it. 2 scholars, one from Ujjaini, and they are the research scholars, and the other one from Chennai. You are from Shastri Institute. Kuppuswamy Shastri Institute. They are the research students who also have sent the papers. Their papers went to ICPR, and ICPR forwarded their papers to us. So this is how it will be a 2-day seminar, and I am sure that it will be a treat for our thought. And with this, I conclude, and I once again welcome you all, and I request all the local participants and scholars to be here for both the days. And I know that traveling in Mumbai is a bit difficult, but doesn't matter. And again, 10 to 6, staying in Mumbai and going back to home also is tedious. But my earnest request is that please be here and take full advantage of this Jnana Satra, so that we all will be benefited and will be able to contribute meaningfully in making the syllabi more enriched of this particular course. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Ms. Joshi. I would like to request her to kindly also stay back to honor and felicite our dignitaries on the dais. So I request Shukra ma'am to kindly speak and welcome Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe. Dr. Vinay ji. request man to felicitate Professor Dr. Bhuvan Chandel. And Dr. Madhavi Narasimhan. History government, Dr. Shukla Rishi Madam, and request Bhuvan Madam to kindly handle that.
Sure. My pleasure.
Thank you, Madam. I'll also bring in a notice that our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Devendra Shinde sir, is not able to make it for this particular program due to another official commitment. But he has sent us best wishes and regards, and if possible, we may hopefully see him tomorrow. Otherwise, he's already sent his best wishes to us. So to begin with the program, we have our chief guest, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe. So I'd like to read his profile. I know most of us in Mumbai University and academic circles know about him. His achievement is something which probably every academician is proud of. Before I read out the CV, I remember the day. I remember the day when the Chief Minister of Maharashtra honored him, and there was one very lightly somebody passed a nice comment, of course, saying that Vinay ji, तुम्ही politics मध्ये गेल्यानंतर त्यांच्यासारखं नका हो, so don't become like them. And the Chief Minister said it should be the other way around, that every politician should become like him. So I know he says it's a short thing, but I would request that you should go on to the website called VinaySahasrabuddhe.com, where every speeches of his thought process, papers are also present. A nationalist at heart, a political scholar by profession, and a politician by elevation, Sahasrabuddhe sir dons many hats at the same time. He is a member of Parliament Rajya Sabha. He looks after the good governance, central and state government program coordination and policy research initiatives at Bharatiya Janata Party. As its national vice president, and Vinay sir is also in charge of the BJP Madhya Pradesh. So you can look at the kind of a portfolio he's handling. He leads the Public Policy Research Center promoted by the Bharatiya Janata Party. Dr. Sahasrabuddhe is Vice President at Rambhau Malgi Pramodini, which is one of its kind research and training academy for elected representatives and social activists. You know, that itself is a big thing, but I know it's got association with United Nations and various other places. And we at the university have also been working closely in various programs with them. Vinay ji completed his post-graduation from this university, so I'm very proud to say he's an alumni of this university. In 1981, his scholarly mentorings into the much relevant theme was political parties as victims of populism and electoral compulsions, a quest for systematic solutions, with special reference to India, got recognized in the form of doctoral degree from this university in 2009. And Dr. Manisha Kekar of CIILS College was his PhD guide. As a member of Senate and Management Council, Vinay sir unearthed several malpractices while striving for financial discipline and transparency as well as protection of financial autonomy. We just were discussing about financial autonomy, how to do it so that university becomes better. Although that's in 1991, he conducted a motivational training program for university officials and its employees. It was this efforts that converted university clubhouse, all the students will be benefiting from it, and underutilized establishment of the West into the Vidyarthi Bhavan, a hub of extracurricular activities for the students. He also mooted the idea of academic unit of university academic staff. Years later, in 1998, his efforts for greater decentralization of university administration yielded results with the establishment of Ratnagiri sub-center of the University of Mumbai. Many of us may be aware of it. We have a sub-center. He's been part of that administration. Vinay ji always stood out as an impressive orator, which we will see just now. He's also an author. His book Beyond a Billion Ballots is based on his PhD thesis and was published at the hands of Shri Narendra Modi ji, our Prime Minister, in the year 2013. A compilation of his selected articles on issues concerning democratic governance in Marathi named Ahe Loktantra, Tari, Tari, which means in spite of democracy in 2011. There are so many other things, as you said, make it brief. So I would request each one of you to visit his website, which will be regularly updated, Vinay So we have a scholar, an academician, and a lover of Mumbai University, and an alumni of Mumbai University as our chief guest, giving us his address. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe.
आजच्या या कार्यक्रमासाठी मुद्दाम दिल्लीहून आपल्यामध्ये उपस्थित असलेल्या आणि तत्वज्ञान विषयातल्या एक फार मोठ्या अभ्यासक आणि चिंतक डॉक्टर भुवन चंदेल, मुंबई विद्यापीठाच्या तत्वज्ञान विभागाचं नेतृत्व अतिशय समर्थपणे ज्यांनी केलं, त्या going to be in English, but let me start with local, then we go to global. ज्यांनी मला देखील मी रुया कॉलेजमध्ये असताना शिकवलेलं आहे अशा डॉक्टर शुभरा जोशी, या संस्कृत विभागाच्या मुंबई विद्यापीठाच्या प्रमुख डॉक्टर माधुरी नरसाळे, माझे मित्र राधाकृष्ण पिल्ले, प्रणव पटेल, उपस्थितांमधले खूप मान्यवर आणि या चर्चासत्रामध्ये उपस्थित बंधू आणि भगिनी. As I said, without understanding the local, you perhaps cannot go global, which is why I thought it fit to start with Marathi, which is the language not only of the state but the people over here and the university as well. Well, normally when somebody is asked to be a chief guest at a seminar of this kind, he or she starts with the sentence that I really feel privileged to be here. And I really feel. I am saying so because otherwise people would take it as a customary opening remark. But I am speaking from the bottom of my heart. And these days you have to be sincere, but perhaps more important is to appear to be sincere. And therefore, and everybody of us know that the quantity orientation in our public affairs has perhaps taken the toll of quality at times. I mean, meet a management person and the jargons that normally he indulges in as terminologies like footfall, eyeball, and when it is social media, it is all about likes and retweets. So what counts is the number, what counts is the appearance, what counts is what meets to your eyes. And therefore I thought it fit to say that I sincerely mean that I feel extremely privileged to be here. There are reasons for this kind of feeling in my mind. To be very honest, I have come here to, in a way, support our young friend Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai and pay my respects to Dr. Shubhra Joshi. Her singular contribution in converting the Department of Philosophy into a vibrant entity of academic activities, research. It's something which is very illustrious, if I may say so. She, during her tenure, has popularized philosophy to such an extent that we now have a kind of an offshoot of the Department of Philosophy, which is this Institute of Leadership Sciences. Perhaps the Mumbai University might be the only university which has its own Institute of Leadership Sciences. Something we all should be taking pride in. Not only that, she also ensured financial self-sufficiency, something very, very difficult these days, and that too for a discipline like philosophy. So singularly, that credit also should go to her and the team that she led. And thirdly, and perhaps more importantly, she, through all her work in the department and in the university, and not only here but elsewhere also. She also has contributed into the art and science of institution building, if I may describe it that way. And therefore I am here basically to pay my respects to her and her colleagues who have done a wonderful job in the University of Mumbai. Friends, I am not a student of philosophy, as you must have realized. I must confess that I haven't gone through the entire text of Arthaśāstra. But I understand whatever little I could read after having committed to be over here, that it is a unique narrative about leadership science, about statecraft and governance, and about public affairs in general. And whatever I could gather, and I hope I am right in saying so, that Chanakya perhaps could be given the credit of not only believing in but demonstrating the beauty in balance. I mean, balance is something which you find everywhere, wherever he has put forth his views, wherever he has given us some sutras kind of. So this is really very amazing, the kind of sense of balance which runs all through his writing. And therefore when we go into the details of what Arthaśāstra tells us, say for example leadership. And being in politics, I am watching how leadership plays in different sectors, not only in governance but in all our public spheres as well. And perhaps leadership is something which has to have that ability to strike balance between ethics and pragmatism. And Chanakya perhaps in so many words tells us, if not in these words, but in several ways, he suggests us that this balance is important. You cannot bid a goodbye to ethics at the cost of pragmatism. I mean, for the sake of pragmatism. Or embrace pragmatism. Or embrace ethics and say goodbye to pragmatism. That cannot happen. Similarly, in governance, and as a student of politics, I have been reading on populism. And governance has a thread of populism in it, inbuilt rather, and democratic governance more essentially. And therefore, on governance also, whatever Chanakya tells us through Arthaśāstra and other writings, as I understand, is again to strike a balance between the good of the people, the lokahita, and the will of the people, the lokamata. Because lokahita and lokamata may not always go together, and there are umpteen number of examples of that. So why you cannot be turning your back to lokahit and pursue lokamat, which is vote bank politics or populist politics or whatever. At the same time, you cannot just go for lokahita and be unconcerned about lokamata, because then that will not allow you to continue in power for years together, which is important if you really are aiming at lokahita. Insofar as public affairs are concerned, again, I see this thread of balance running all through. And that is about what modern day academicians describe as praxis, theory and practice, or philosophy and practice. And therefore, while remembering Chanakya and Arthaśāstra as a student of politics, in a way as a practitioner of leadership science, I believe I myself and many others need to understand all the efforts of Chanakya to bridge the gap between vision and ground experience. Because that is what shapes your agenda in a way. You have to be mindful of vision and certainly take into consideration your experience, which gives you some practical tips in a way how to move ahead. But having said that, and taking a note of the present day politics, present day state of leadership in our country, and when I say leadership, I must also hasten to add that very unfortunately the thinking, the entire body of academic work, if I am not exaggerating, about leadership science in our country and perhaps world over, only talks of corporate leadership. I mean, such a skewed view of leadership science. While leadership is everywhere. So many honorable lady academicians are here and they are leading their own families. Because in our families, essentially, women are the leaders, which is why the family system is intact, whatever it is. So, the role of leadership, I mean, the leadership role as such, is everywhere, in every walk of life. This is a department and the department requires leadership. Now, the idea of leadership, when you confine it to only corporate leadership, naturally presents you a very limited view. And therefore, it is very important that institutions like this also take into consideration social leadership, family leadership, philosophical or academic leadership, thought leadership again. And therefore, with changing times, all other dimensions also need to be taken into consideration. And if at all there is any country that can provide this knowledge base, it is India. Which is why perhaps the responsibility of this kind of an institute, which is happily housed in the Department of Sanskrit and supported by the Department of Philosophy. Sama Sayoga. So I believe it's a task, it's a mission carved out for the department, for the Institute of Leadership Sciences, to take a holistic approach of the leadership science and give us deeper insights into how do we develop those leadership traits in ourselves. And therefore I believe in this context, and when we look at the institutional life, the social life, I believe the dearth of leadership is something very acute. Maybe you are aware that in our country there are more than 1700 political parties. And most of the political parties are either one man or one family political parties. And the leadership pattern doesn't pass on from one person to the other or one family to the other. And the reasons are obvious, I don't want to politicize this. But that's a fact. And there are maybe close to 4 to 5 lakhs voluntary organizations which are popularly known as NGOs. They are also struggling to get good leaders. And then several other establishments. And I need not elaborate upon how institutions like universities are also looking for good leaders and how they are also in short supply. So, take the example of politics, take the example of administration, take the example of academics. Everywhere, leaders are wanted and they are not to be seen. And therefore, in this context, on the one hand, the need to have a more holistic approach towards the science of leadership. On the other hand, the emerging need of leadership in every other walk of life. What I consider perhaps is essential is reinventing and rebuilding upon Arthaśāstra. Arthaśāstra gives us a foundation, but we have to rebuild upon it, taking into consideration the modern day requirements and the modern day thinking and the new shape of our social affairs in a way, whether it is family life or social organizations, whatever. So in this context, I have to just reflect upon 3-4 points in a limited span of time. I believe, and since Arthaśāstra is all about governance as well, apart from diplomacy and strategy and everything, the urgent need as a student of democratic governance, I feel, is to rescue democratic governance from the cage of compulsions. And they are also limitless. Several compulsions are there. The moment you go for democracy, in a way you offer yourself to be a prisoner of these compulsions. Take the example of democracy, the term democracy. Now, if somebody has to describe democracy pictorially, how does one do that? They normally give us a ballot box. So, democracy has become synonymous to elections or voting, and elections, thanks to the contribution of several politicians, and not only in India but elsewhere as well. In all the countries, democracy is not in a very good shape, let me tell you. So, while the equation that democracy means elections, election means winning them for power, and power for self-aggrandizement, and self-aggrandizement for perpetuation of power. So this is the vicious circle. And therefore, while we have been, for example, in India, patting our own backs that this is the largest democracy of the world and all those things, yes it is. But is it delivering? Is it making any change? These are generic questions. I am not referring to any particular period of the history of democracy of modern India, post-independent India, independence India. But we continue to be facing these challenges. I just wanted to bring this to notice. And therefore, democratic governance, I am afraid, may lose its ability to make an impact due to principally, and there may be many, but as I understand, 3 principal crises. Firstly, there is a crisis of motivation. I don't know what Arthaśāstra can offer to those who are so very under-motivated. If you ask this question put forth very bluntly to a politician, why is he in politics? He may not be able to give you a convincing answer. He will talk blah blah, all about changing society and things like that. But whether his conduct will support what he is saying, I don't know. And there are officials, IAS officials, officialdom, bureaucracy, afsarshani, whatever you call it. Those who aspire for IAS, they have all kinds of dreams. The moment they land there, the dreams are crushed. And therefore, to an IAS official as well, no disrespect to anybody, but the fact remains that after he having spent a couple of years in the service, if you again put this question before him, why is he in administration? Again he will talk blah blah. But the way he is walking may not support what he is talking, unfortunately. And therefore there is a crisis of motivation. There is an under-motivation. There is a sense of insecurity all along, everywhere. Everybody is needlessly insecure because there is no strength from within. They were not students of philosophy, I'm sure. So there is a sense of insecurity which makes you go for compromises one after the other. And there is a defense all the time because you have to survive. So the crisis of motivation. In English, the beauty of the language is that when you say crisis of, it is interpreted in both ways. I mean, crisis of motivation means lack of motivation. And second crisis which I am saying is the crisis of myopia, in the sense abundance of myopia, not the lack of myopia. So let me ask you to explain. So there is short-sightedness everywhere. A politician thinks for about 5 years, and the bureaucrat to his tenure, which is not in his hands. So that myopia again limits your vision and in a way grounds all your aspirations as well, and then you try to convince yourself, chhod do yaar. That has become kind of a refrain. I mean, everything chhod do to. That is the sorry state of affairs. And more importantly, the third crisis, which is the crisis of mutuality. The bureaucracy and the leadership, political leadership, the legislature, don't have the ideal kind of relationship. Even the working relationship is in danger at times. And you see this in several municipal corporations or Jila Parishads and in several departments. And again, this is not confined to a specific regime. It's there. I mean, over the years, 70 years of independence, and if we still have not been able to repair this relationship and evolve a very decent kind of relationship where mutuality of respect is there is a mutuality of space, there is a mutuality of functionality, then I think something is seriously amiss. And therefore this crisis of mutuality again is taking its toll if I look at it as a student of democratic governance. Now where are the answers? Again, in my limited capacity to understand Arthaśāstra and my earnest appeal that perhaps it is high time we rebuild upon the knowledge base that has been provided by Raja Chanakya. I believe that we have to first re-examine the sense of purpose. And I have already talked about motivation, so I did not elaborate on this. But this sense of purpose, again, it's missing in government offices, it's missing in university departments, it's missing even amongst the students. I mean, one may look at it positively and we have to be positive in our approach. Granted, even then, I can't understand why people go for MBBS and then go for IAS. I mean, is it confusion or is it real pursuit of knowledge? I fail to understand. I am afraid the first one is perhaps the closer to the reality. So, I mean, all kinds of things. We have autonomy, we have every kind of liberty and it should remain there. But again, I mean, it starts from the family itself. The kind of pressures are there, the peer pressure, and therefore the sense of purpose lost somewhere down the line. So re-examine the sense of purpose, perhaps that may help us in overcoming this. Secondly, rediscovering the element of authenticity, which is again, I am afraid, we are missing. All our public conduct and perhaps personal conduct as well has become very artificial and therefore very superficial. I these days live in Delhi, and in Delhi, I mean, you come across any individual and if he is decent enough, normally he or she asks, "Kaise ho?" Which is a routine thing, but perhaps not really interested in knowing as to how you are. Well, I mean, this is not confined to Delhi, it's everywhere. If you go to the US, they will also ask how you, and they may not be interested in knowing as to how exactly you are. Because if you try to explain it, sit, I'll tell you. And the changing social situation also throws perhaps new vocabulary, new terminology. If you don't have to go for a particular maybe wedding function or anything, but then the situation is such that you have to go, people normally use the term जरा जाके face showing कर गया था, मुंह दिखा के आता. I mean, everything has become, because I mean, if you then count on the support that you have, because so many people turned up for their family wedding, then perhaps you are mistaken. I don't know. Many of them are face showers. They may not be there. I mean, there is a kind of hypocrisy as well. And therefore, authenticity, again, I believe, requires to be cultivated through special efforts. It cannot happen, or one cannot hope that it will, through the passage of time, happen. I am afraid it will not. Thirdly, and this is also for all of us to experience, to understand in our everyday life, within the families, within the institutions, everywhere, there is an urgent need to rebuild relationships. They are also in danger. And I need not elaborate on this. All of us are aware. When the vibrancy of authenticity is missing, as a logical corollary of it, the relationship is also not flourishing. And as a sum total of all this, what I understand, we need to restore a sense of ownership. We don't own. I mean, take the example of our country, our state, our city, our suburb, our mohalla, our office, our institution. People indulge in abusing. I mean, don't tell me our department is so great in inverted commas. I mean, we indulge in name calling, we indulge in abusing. We don't take ownership because it is Madam's department, it is Sir's department, not my department. And this perhaps applies in all other situations. So I believe re-examining the sense of purpose, rediscovering the element of authenticity, rebuilding our relationships and restoring the sense of ownership perhaps may lead us to repair and perhaps to make some changes in a situation where we are in a way encircled by the crisis of motivation, myopia and maturity, especially when on governance. On this setting, let me also tell that in our country, whenever we talk about Arthaśāstra, about Chanakya, about Vedas and all those our traditional treasure of knowledge, normally people who talk about these things are looked at in a particular way, and you know. So I believe we have to be a little alert on that, without being apologetic, without being shy about it. We have to very confidently tell others what we have, because they don't know. And unfortunately, they don't know that they don't know. That is also a very serious situation. And therefore, what comes to my mind is a very beautiful Hindi couplet. I'll just share that, and with that, I would conclude my presentation. It's a Hindi couplet, very beautiful. It says that कुछ लोग कुल्हाड़ी लेकर पेड़ काटने आए हैं मेरे गांव में. कुछ लोग कुल्हाड़ी लेकर पेड़ काटने आए हैं मेरे गांव में. धूप बड़ी तेज है, कह रहे हैं बैठकर उसी पेड़ की छाव में. I hope the message is loud and clear. और मैं
Thank you, Vinay ji.
Right.
As the name says, Vinay, humility. In spite of being in power, surrounded by power, when he says that I'm ready to come here to inspire all of us, I think it's real motivation that is spoken about. In fact, Arthaśāstra speaks about the different qualities of the leader, and one of them is actually Utsaha Shakti, the ability to inspire. And of course, there is Mantra Shakti, the ability to get good advice, and of course, Prabhu Shakti. So all this will be deliberating, but you touched upon some of the things that is lacking not only in our generation but in our country. It's something that actually in the past we have perfected. And so you'll be also happy to know that not only this conference but also the students over here come, as Shukla said, from various interdisciplinary approach. And Arthaśāstra, your topic has been good governance, but we have right from history, philosophy, we have Sanskrit, we have the armed forces, we have representatives from various other sections where we try and deliberate and come back to the conclusion that finally a good leader is a Rajarishi, a philosopher king, that wherever you are a leader, finally the base of philosophy is important. With that, I'd like to introduce one of the world's well-known philosophers, Dr. Professor Bhuvan Chandel. So it is very important from Chanakya's perspective because he talks about how to acquire knowledge. And one of the ways of acquiring knowledge is Vriddha Sanyoga, the ability to connect to Vriddha. Vriddha is not only old but also wise. So we have a combination of people just being surrounded by Vriddha, you will gain knowledge. It's a Vriddha Seva. If you have grandparents at your home, don't treat them as useless, but they are the one who have experience. So with a professor like Bhuvan Chandel madam, the debate that myself and Shukla Joshi madam had, kitna lamba introduction hai, because all great people including Vinay ji said chota karo, chota hi rakha hai, because you better listen to them. So introduction is Professor Dr. Bhuvan Chandel, retired professor and head of Department of Philosophy at the Punjab University, Chandigarh. Member Secretary as well as Chairman of ICPR, who is a part of our organizing team. Associated with ICPR for various other capacities as well. President of Indian Philosophical Congress, General Secretary of IPC, Chairman Indian Institute of Advanced Studies at Shimla, Vice President of FISP, that is Federation of International Societies of Philosophy, played a vital role always in the whole world of philosophy and the Philosophical Congress. Wrote and edited number of volumes in different areas of philosophy. Member Secretary of Center for Studies and Civilizations, New Delhi, which has very significantly contributed the project of history of Indian science, philosophy and culture, and has brought out more than 10 volumes and published out 100, sorry, I'm so sorry, 100, but 100 volumes.
135 now.
135. So the 100 is going on this particular project, editor of Philosophical Journal Sandhan. But what is very important is that she's traveled worldwide. Whenever we meet him, she says, "Abhi US mein 2 mahina reh ke aayi, abhi Greece mein ja ke aayi." And what is interesting is that these are the kind of stalwarts who had made the effort to actually bring in Indian philosophy at the world level. I like to share one personal incident. We as a group from Mumbai University were lucky enough to go to Athens in Greece. And there are a lot of professors and teachers present over here. And under her leadership, World Philosophy Congress. And we saw over there that we had so many Indian philosophers going, but there was this Chinese delegation, right? Which comes over there united and says that, let us do the World Philosophy Congress next time in China. That's happening in 2018. And the first thought we had is that we philosophers, teachers, thinkers should come back and maybe get the next World Philosophy Congress in India. And I'm probably Mumbai University and all the people sitting over here can play a major role. So here is the presidential address from our own dear Professor Dr. Bhuvan Chandel.
sitting on the dais. Vinayji I have met for the first time, head of the Department of Sanskrit. I think I met earlier when I came, and the seminar was organized here. And Shubhdaji and all of you happen to be, let me say, my friends, because I have come here very, very often. And I consider not only Shubhdaji but the Bombay University Department of Philosophy and University as such as a very, very friendly group of institutions. We have done, I think, several world level or at least Asian level seminars here. If not on this campus, maybe in his campus, I don't know.
Yes, it's Rambam, yes.
Upper here, but I think his organization helped us to get
Indian Philosophical Congress.
something. My memory goes back to several years back. So therefore, I'm not really a new person, nor do I need an introduction. But still, since Shubhdaji has succeeded in establishing this Center for Studies in International Domain, which is trying to unify the various disciplines of philosophy, which in my opinion is the need of the hour. I mean, we have been trying to say that philosophy through its dialogue, right, whether we speak of the Western philosophy or now as I am trying to learn a bit from the Indian philosophy as well, I feel that the two streams of philosophy are trying to give humanity the same kind of wisdom. If Platonic dialogues or if Aristotle is in his Nicomachean Ethics is trying to tell us how life is to be lived, what should be the code of conduct, what should be the best human behavior, then I think this is not lacking in the Indian tradition, as has been pointed out by Vinay Sahasrabuddhe. I was very happy to hear him because he spoke not like a politician but like a proper scholar of Indian philosophy, and I think he's like that. Manan bahut kiya hai, so I think I'm happy you invited him, and he should be more in touch with people who are seeking interaction at the level of the several disciplines of, say, philosophy, political science, law, defense studies. I believe some people were there. This is what exactly has been done by Kautilya long back. But I would like to share some of my thoughts briefly, because I'm not going to work for 15 minutes, because I don't want to cut your time from your normal setup. I feel that like Western philosophy, if Western philosophy is looking for values, I mean, all dialogues of Plato, if you try to explore them, you are looking for one value or the other. Ultimately, it is what makes human character the ideal character. And this is the discussion throughout, whether you read existentialist ethics, or you read phenomenological ethics, or you read the contemporary philosophical theories in the context of Western philosophy. But this is precisely what has been done, I think, much more elaborately in the Indian tradition. And if you read Kautilya, I think nothing is left. Nothing is left. So it is in this context that you are very, very lucky to have a person like Shubha Joshiji, because when I invite her to deliver a talk anywhere in either a national or an international forum, she enlightens us not only in the perspective of Indian philosophy, but a comparative study of what has been said in the Indian tradition and how possibly it can be translated into the Western medium also. I think we have to really look, as Radhakrishnan has said, wisdom of humanity as a whole. And it is in this context that it is our humble function to see what have been the contributions of those rishis and the sages who have laid down the text. If you see the history of the Arthaśāstra, I think one is amazed, just amazed. I mean, reading right from Kane's works are phenomenal, indeed phenomenal. They have listed what was done 7,000 years back, before the Vedas and after the Vedas, And what have been the different commentaries? To my mind, it seems that the entire theme which Indian philosophy is trying to carry is values, but also spirituality. And I would like to say, ultimately, it is the ideal of peace, as has been advocated by the Purusharthas, which I believe is also the end objective of Kautilya, not only Kautilya, but the entire tradition. So there is a few pages, a little I'll say about spirituality, and try to see how Kautilya is related to this desire to acquire spirituality, system of values, in close collaboration with what we say, unity of thought and action. Karma carries in any case pradhan hai hamare discipline mein. But then if we are speaking of even how state has to be divided into villages and cities, what has to be the administrative setup for those cities and the villages, I think the ultimate detail has been touched by seeing what kind of administration has to be carried on, what kind of defense forces, what kind of segmentation has to be done of even people who are fighting, and diplomacy for that matter. How the enemies have to be handled, and how the friends of the enemies have to be handled. So you see the two polarities, they have been brought together. At one end we are seeking excellence of the soul, which Plato always wanted to seek, and here we are trying to look for spirituality. But in this case, I briefly wish to bring to your notice a very beautiful passage from Kautilya, which has captured my mind ever since. It says, and well, all of us who are in philosophy love philosophy. So since he's speaking about philosophy in this particular para, he's summarizing and putting in a little shell how the entire knowledge can be just put in one word, philosophy. So I'm quoting it here. He says, philosophy is ever thought as the lamp of all sciences. This brings your interconnectivity of different disciplines into one synthetic whole. I mean, the quotation is, philosophy is ever thought as the lamp of which will throw light as to how law will develop, how history will develop, how political science will develop, how our thinking about the defense relations will, etc., which we call philosophy of science, philosophy of social sciences, philosophy of law, philosophy of history, etc. And then he goes on to say, as the means of all action and as the support of all laws and duties. Shukdaji is always saying, apart from the responsibilities, we must bring attention of the citizens and the members of the society to duties also. So here he is saying, in the same little, these are only 3 lines. Philosophy is ever thought as the lamp of all sciences, as the means of all action, and as the support of all the laws and duties. And further, not quoting the whole thing, and which will help one in learning what is spiritual good and material value. Nothing is left out. The Purusharthas include the spiritual and the material good. And Kautilya. This is one little sentence, 3 sentences, which in my opinion encompass the entire domain and realm of knowledge and domain of wisdom also. So it is in this context I will share some of my thoughts. The Indian mind postulated the notion of dharma as the supreme moral ideal, and through dharma, nirvana, moksha, we are familiar with these terms, as liberation from bondage or as the ultimate objectives of all human action in our Indian tradition. Indian ethics presupposes a belief in the immortality of the soul and the embodiment of the soul from time to time, some kind of transmigration. If we believe in, Westerners, at least the Greeks do it also. If we believe in immortality of soul, then the Greeks, at least Plato, Aristotle, all these people also believe in the immortality of soul. if what we are trying to achieve in this life, it cannot be given in this life, it should be given in my next life. This will be the basis and presupposition of morality for at least the possibility of action. Kant, if we are familiar with Immanuel Kant, has said very beautifully, what cannot be accepted as a basis of reason must be accepted as a matter of fact. And this belief in our other existence or the other life happens to be one of the presuppositions for even speaking about the possibility of moral action. So in this sense, this is the immortality of the soul, and transmigration of the soul also gains significance why we should speak about it. Different schools of philosophy from the Vedic era to the non-Vedic era and beyond have entertained these values and prescribed morally appropriate action. If we are speaking of duties, then here is the emphasis on action. How? Through knowledge. So thought and action get together. Vinay spoke about praxis. Praxis is action. But praxis cannot be there if you do not have clarity of thought. So therefore, this is where knowledge comes in, this is where wisdom comes in. And our entire Indian tradition is trying to look in that direction, trying to achieve this particular idea. Vedic ethics of the ancient India. In fact, moral values and the principles of moral life have been a serious concern of the Indian mind and have been a perpetual subject matter of the basic ancient texts of Indian wisdom, Vedas in this particular context, which it is said they go back to 4,000 years, some say they go back to 7,000 years before the birth of Christ. Therefore, we are very proud of the fact to propose to the entire world that Vedas contain significant insights into how life should be lived and what value structures humans should pursue during the course of their lifespans. Obviously, therefore, the texts of Vedic ethics are aimed at creating not only a good human being, but also a very fine human society. That's why Vedas should be remembered also. We should not give it up as ancient and something which should be discarded because this knowledge will help us in building our future samaj. हम आगे की बात करें, भविष्य कैसा हो? भविष्य cannot be there unless we unearth the wisdom of the past. Therefore, ideal society is worthy of providing excellence and meaningfulness to human life by at least doing manan, at least thinking over which is the wise path, and I'll go further. Discard what is not wise. There's no harm in it. If your intellect says this part should be given up, मेरे को जाती है ऐसी लगती है चीज़. जाती अगर कहीं हमारी इंडियन ट्रेडिशन से आई है, it has to be discarded, and all those relevant conceptual structures which have supported it have also to be criticized meaningfully, and somehow a way has to be found for the society to reject. So this is one way where dharma has to be seen as the ultimate lamp which may throw light how human actions are to be conducted, but human actions must always include only sadachar, that is good conduct only and not bad conduct. In my opinion, somewhere certain practices came into हमारे समाज में या हमारे way of life में जहाँ पे we started making discriminations between one man and another and one segment of society and another. This is a perpetual concern of philosophers and academicians and also practical men even today. कैसे equality लाएं? कैसे we should not racial consideration should be discarded? कैसे हम जातिवाद को Indian context कैसे उठाएं? We are seeing all around that all this has to be avoided in this particular case. So in this sense, whether it is the Vedas or it is the Manusmritis have emphasized dharma, trying to point out the human action. So I have spoken about Manu, that क्या बोलते हैं Manu, truth he accepts. क्या है truth का function? It exalts the mind. It reminded me, किसी ने कहा, रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर ने कहा, literature elevates your soul. आप finest poetry पढ़िए, finest literature पढ़िए, it takes you far above. मतलब जहाँ हम whatever human level. But Manu says it is truth, which exalts the mind, and knowledge and strict devotion to duty elevates the soul. जो लिटरेचर वाला लिटरेचर के बारे में कह रहे हैं, मनु हमारी सोल के बारे में कह रहा है. इसके लिए क्या करना चाहिए? हाउ द ह्यूमन बिहेवियर हैज टू बी इम्प्रूव्ड. उसके लिए वैल्यूज चाहिए और नियम चाहिए. इसके लिए यम एंड नियम या रेगुलेशन. What are yamas? What are niyamas? You know this. Yamas are 5 kinds. अहिंसा है, सत्य है, आस्तेय है, ब्रह्मचर्य है, अपरिग्रह. These are नियम क्या है? 5. Purity of mind, contentment without desire for reward or consequences of actions. तीसरा तपस है. चौथा स्वाध्याय है. पांचवा है placing oneself at the disposal of forces beyond the forces which may be whether immanent or transcendent, and then try to rise to those levels from where you can look at universal values. All these are spoken of in the context of Manu. मैंने यहाँ पे स्वामी दयानंद का विजन ऑफ ट्रूथ को कोट किया. आई एम श्योर you people have read quite a bit of Swami Dayanand. कहीं से गए थे वो शायद गुजरात से. What contribution he has for the national cause, आर्य समाज उनकी प्रोजेक्शन. सारी फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल अगर लड़ी गई है तो आर्य समाज के लोगों ने जिनको इंस्पायर किया ऋषि दयानंद ने. और ये ऋषि दयानंद के थॉट्स हैं कि वेदास हमारे अल्टीमेट टेक्स्ट हैं जिन पर आप ध्यान दीजिए. वो हमें विजडम सिखा रहे हैं. सत्य क्या है and then 4 आश्रमास क्या हैं. all these I am deleting because this is something which you know. ब्रह्मचर्य आश्रम क्या है, गृहस्थ क्या है, वानप्रस्थ क्या है, संन्यास, और इनकी ड्यूटीज क्या हैं और मीमांसा एथिक्स की क्या ड्यूटीज हैं वगैरह. But I now go to कौटिल्य. कौटिल्य के बारे में हम कब सोचते हैं? What are the duties in the context of राजधर्म? Kautilya's Arthaśāstra is one of the earliest works which attempts to formulate precepts concerning the establishment of institutions of society. मेरा ध्यान was attracted when he examined fully the institution of kingship. The precepts or rules bore on matters of administration of justice and of the state policy at home and abroad, and in seeking a fulfilled human life and a noble society also at that. This text gives a deep insight into the social, economic, political and religious life of ancient India. It has elaborate and thoughtful principles of guidance for rulers so that they can effectively organize the good governance of the society and the state. Rajdharma, for example, has been highlighted by Kautilya as the art of administration in which the essence of all ethical treatises are more or less summarized. In fact, all these ethical treatises in a very summary sense by the time of Kautilya and Manu were spoken of in the form of Rajdharma. So Rajdharma had been proclaimed as the highest goal to be achieved by humanity, correspondingly subsuming under it the forms of human behavior and criterion for deciding what is right and wrong, what is good and bad. Rajdharma became the principal regulative principle which was hailed as the regulatory of the age. The king was considered as the harbinger of the golden age, who, if he is well versed with Rajdharma, could avert disasters and even decide to wage war for peace and for the good life of the people. Chapter 19 of Kautilya's verse 34, it pertains to the rules to be obeyed by the king. Kautilya says in this context, quote, In the happiness of the subjects lies the happiness of the king, and in what is beneficial to the subject lies his own benefit. King should see that in the benefit of the subjects lies his own benefit. आजकल होता नहीं है वैसे particular rulers हैं, as Vinay ji had pointed out, अपना वंश बात propagate कर रहे हैं लालू को देख के, लालू से राहुल जी का भी कहीं तक से नहीं वंश बात do this. This doesn't happen really. So this quotation is trying to say what is dear to himself is dear, should be first dear to the subject, and whatever is dear to subject should be dear to the king. Further, from the verses 26 to 28, he provides following prescriptions. King should allow unrestricted entrance to those wishing to see him in connection with their affairs. For a king difficult of access is easy. He will be made to do the reverse of what ought to be done. In that case, he will be thrown away from his seat. And in consequence, there will be a reward he may have to face, an inselection of the subjects or subjugation of the enemy. So he should better avoid. So Kautilya's Arthaśāstra unmistakably marks the culmination of a very long process of Indian thought. जो spirituality की बात कर रहा है, peace की बात कर रहा है, good conduct की बात कर रहा है, on matters pertaining to the welfare of the society and its people. It contains 15 sections, 150 chapters, 180 subjects, and 6,000 passages. His principles of governance of the state enunciate some of the most important aspects. This makes governance of the state by the ruler through acquisition of knowledge and wisdom is final. So knowledge and wisdom has to be underlined. And division of the state into villages, towns, appointment of presiding authorities for each one of these, establishment of a system of justice, law कैसा होना चाहिए, rules कैसे होने चाहिए, regulations कैसे होने चाहिए, forms of marriages कैसे होने चाहिए, उनके लिए rules क्या बनने चाहिए, उसमें divorce की भी possibility है, उसके लिए क्या conditions होनी चाहिए, duties and responsibilities of husband and wife, rights of women and their duties. Shukra is always saying कि जहाँ duties नहीं है वहाँ कुछ नहीं है, but Kautilya ने duties of husband and wife भी enlist करी हैं, security of artists भी, tradesmen भी and state departments, management of national disasters like fire. Somebody was saying that national disaster तो contemporary idiom है, नहीं, it is not contemporary idiom, ये Kautilya के ज़माने का है, और उसमें floods भी आ गए, diseases भी आ गई, famines भी आ गई, death and financial penalties for different kinds of violations of social and moral norms. तो सारा justice के courts भी तो वही है उसमें, क्या courts किस तरह से decision देंगे. So in this sense, the code of conduct for ministers, councillors, punishment for rebellion, आजकल ministers के लिए कोई वो नहीं है, वो जितने पैसे मर्जी खाए, जो मर्जी crime करें, नहीं है. But Kautilya has laid it down. He says no, ये punishment ministers को नहीं होनी चाहिए. Not only that, he says अगर trust violate हो या enemies और उनके friends को कोई associate हमारा friendly country करता है, तो what should be done in this particular diplomacy? In other words, has also been advocated. And then he speaks about municipalities and trade organizations. Municipality, many people think is a contemporary invention of trying to say कि ऐसी local body होनी चाहिए which looks after the local needs. It is not looking after, बड़ा घर पड़ा हुआ है सारे हिंदुस्तान में. पर उसने बोला municipalities और उनकी rules क्या, उनके क्या duties होनी चाहिए, trade organizations क्या होनी चाहिए, और अगर powerful enemies हैं, how to organize secret services also, and how to destroy their forces and their full command. In that case, he is recommending कि उनके जो grain storages हैं उनको खत्म कर दो और वहाँ पे कोई बीमारी फैला दो, so that they are destroyed altogether. जैसे आजकल ये कर रहा है, किम कर रहा है, वीज़ा भी अमेरिका. So secret planning क्या होनी चाहिए, killing the enemy. And etc. etc. So I am now coming to my last mistake, that Kautilya also is in that tradition of trying to seek spirituality, जिसमें हमारे पुरुषार्थs have constituted a very definite role, और उसमें धर्म की हमने बात की है. तो बट इन सारी चीज़ों में चाहे मनु की स्मृति है, चाहे कौटिल्य के शास्त्र हैं, चाहे वेदों का ये धर्म का कॉन्सेप्ट आगे जाना है, चाहे पुरुषार्थ का है, अल्टीमेटली जो आइडियल हम सीख कर रहे हैं, दैट इज द आइडियल ऑफ नॉट ओनली अर्थ काम धर्म मोक्ष बिफोर पुरुषार्थ और दंड नीति को स्ट्रॉन्ग करना, इस तरह की पनिशमेंट हो एक्सेट्रा, बट अल्टीमेटली इट इज टू प्रपोज कि किस किस्म के कर्म से या किस किस्म की 3 क्वालिटीज के साथ या प्रवृत्ति एंड निवृत्ति कर्मा के माध्यम से we can ultimately seek universal peace. And I come here to my last para in this sense. Atonement भी है, प्रायश्चित है, अनुताप है, तपस्या है, all this. It can be subsumed. But ahimsa as an ideal, in my view, has been the ultimate ideal of the entire Indian tradition. So non-violence has been accepted by Indian tradition as parama dharma, ultimate dharma है हमारा. In the famous Indian epic Mahabharata, a theory of action for the sake of righteous battle is propounded, which is enjoined after all means for attaining justice have been explored and exhausted, and apart from the possibility of an abject, unrighteous surrender when nothing else was left. So therefore, under such circumstances, it's a dharmiyun and war is justified in that case. Through this theory of Indian tradition, or this kind of interpretation of Indian tradition, including our epics, they propound or they expound the ideal of fight against justice and evil, that means ultimately somehow ahimsa ka raj establish hona chahiye, and therefore Indian ethics commends non-violence as a supreme value, but is also indicating occasions on which departure from this principle is permissible. Therefore, foundational freedom in action is achieved by, again if I come to basic detachment that can be proposed. I don't know, war की बात करने के बाद एकदम detachment की भी बात कर रहे हैं, but Indian tradition has spoken of detachment. A detachment which is achieved through withdrawal into the transcendent self. हमारी सोल की बात आ गई, हमारे उस transcendent self की बात आ गई. Therefore, this then is the ideal of sthita prajna. You locate yourself within yourself. One who is a man of divinity and is rooted in his own self is the ultimate ideal of Indian tradition. In my opinion, that's my interpretation. Therefore, this person who is sthita prajna himself is respected for what he does, not for what he is alone, what he is, but also for what he does. Therefore, Indian ethics assigns the highest respect to a man who has attained the status of sthita prajna. My interpretation is this. You may agree or you may not agree, but I feel that peace and locating yourself in wisdom and knowledge perhaps is the ideal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bhuvan Chandel, for giving such a beautiful overview of the whole Arthaśāstra. It was almost like a mini summary, starting from Anvikshiki, Pradipah Sarva Vidyanam to every other part of, we'll be seeing other scholars also presenting. But as I say, you have set the tone with the presidential speech. We'll be now having our own Dr. Madhavi herself, who is the head of Department of Sanskrit, a scholar herself, and who's been working on various other scriptures, but most also a lover of Arthasastra, and it's thanks to her and all the department over here in Sanskrit Bhavan that we've been able to hold this conference. So a vote of thanks for this particular inaugural session from Madhavi.
We'll take a break from.
Inaugural session is not for question answers. Respected dignitaries on the dais, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, Professor Dr. Bhuvan Chandel,
Dr. Shrikant Joshi, my dear friend Dr. Chanakya and the scholars who have gathered here. So the inaugural session, it lays down a very strong foundation, Arthaśāstra, for any evidence deliberation. And after listening to the two speakers, I feel we don't have any speck of doubt regarding the direction of our seminar. I would say that Parisamvadasya Durha Dhanunani Santi firm are the foundations of this Parisamvad. So let me take the opportunity on behalf of the Chanakya International Institute of Leadership Science and the Department of Sanskrit to thank Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe for his insightful address. Incidentally, the first prakarana of Kautilya Arthaśāstra is Vinayadhikarika. And we have the first address is by Dr. Vinay. So I really like his definition of democracy, which is the beauty in balance. And that is a very vital point. And secondly, he said that we have to rescue democratic governance from the cage of compulsion. So the thought has been very beautifully put forth in front of us. And I remember the good old days. He may not remember, but when I was the Karyakarta of Vidyarthi Parishad, we used to look forward for his Bauddhic satras in those days, and I could relive those memories once again. So thank you, sir, for being with us in spite of your busy schedule, and for the thoughts which you have put forth, which will give a proper insight in this two-day deliberation. I'm also extremely thankful to Professor Dr. Bhuvan Chandel for her presidential address. And so she made a very important point, and that is wisdom of the past is essential for building up the ideal society. Madam will engages with the historical and the contemporary will surely provide a school for thought in these two-day celebration which will be going on. So we have these two as the margadarshak of the seminar. Then I owe my thanks to the DATA, the Indian Council of Philosophical Research, for recognizing the academic values, not just finances, but it is also recognizing the academic value of the theme of the seminar, which will surely give us a direction in future and which will actually develop thought leadership amongst the citizens of India, amongst the students of philosophy and amongst the students of leadership science. So let me take this opportunity to thank Professor Dr. S.R. Bhatt, the scholar of great repute, the chairman of ICIILS. I also express my thanks and gratefulness to Member Secretary ICIILS, Professor Dr. R.K. Shukla. He will be with us for the session tomorrow. So in spite of his busy schedule, he is being with us. So I am expressing my thanks. I am also grateful to the program officer of ICIILS, Dr. Sushil Shinde, for being with us in this entire endeavor, and we look forward for his insightful deliberations. So let me acknowledge the Marga Vineta, the efforts of the Finance and Accounts Department of the University for facilitating the entire proceeding of the seminar, and as well as the GLE section for the organization of the seminar. We also should be thankful for the Bojaita, the Dharmani canteen, and so because as we require food for thought, we require food for stomach also, and they are going to take care of us for these 2 days. The coming Pravartaks, who are the secretarial assistants, which has been provided by Shekhali Mole and Jinesh. So we are extremely thankful for that, because that is very essential for facilitating the smooth, flawless proceedings of the seminar. My thanks goes to the chairpersons and the paper setters who will be there for 2 days and will give a very different insight in this entire endeavor. Lastly, Shrotaraha, So if everything is there, but there are no shlokas to receive what we are going to discuss, to question us, to help us analyze the different aspects of Kautilya's Arthaśāstra, the seminar won't be a success. So I'm thanking them also in advance. And so we'll wait for tea for this, and then again come back for the session which will be there in the next 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhura ma'am, for thanks for us. We said it is just the beginning of the 2-day deliberation that we'll be having. As Vinay rightly pointed out, we just come for this. Bhuvan ma'am has just come for this, but there are some scholars in our midst who have come from different parts of India. Just like to immediately notice Dr. Ranganathan Nair sir was just arrived from Kerala. We have Dr. Sudha Sharma coming from Bangalore. We have representing the defense forces. We also have Colonel Pradeep Gautam. They've been doing wonderful work in the application of Arthaśāstra in the armed forces, including institutions like IDSA, Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis, the National Defense College, Defense Services Staff College. The reason I am telling this during the tea break is that please utilize your time in networking with these scholars, because the Arthaśāstra journey should begin when the conference ends tomorrow. Thank you so much. We look forward to tea break.
Dear all, there will be 5 minutes break and the session will start.